There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me.
There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me.
There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me.
There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me.
Come on, church, we're going to sing of his faithfulness today. Sing of his goodness. We worship you. We worship you, Jesus. Thank you. I am holding on to faith. 'cause I know you'll make a way. And I don't always understand, and I don't always get to see, but I will believe it, I will believe it. You make mountains move, you make giants fall, you use songs of praise to shake prison walls. And I will speak to my fear, I will preach to my doubt, that you were faithful then, you'll be faithful now. So faithful, God. 'Cause I am standing on your word. I'm calling heaven down to earth, and you will fight my enemies, and this will end in victory. And I will believe it, yes, I will believe it. You make mountains move, you make giants fall, you use songs of praise to shake prison walls. And I will speak to my fear, I will preach to my doubt, that you were faithful then, you'll be faithful now. You were faithful then, you'll be faithful now. And I know that I know you never fail. Yes, I know that I know you never will. And I know that I know you never fail. Yes, I know that I know you never will. You make mountains move, you make giants fall, you use songs of praise to shake prison walls. And I will speak to my fear, I will preach to my doubt. You were faithful then, you'll be faithful now. You make mountains move, you make giants fall, you use songs of praise to shake prison walls. And I will speak to my fear, I will preach to my doubt. You were faithful then, you'll be faithful now. You were faithful then, you'll be faithful now. Church, what an incredible reminder that song is of just how incredibly faithful our God is. He is unchanging. He is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And I wonder, are you struggling to trust God today? Are you struggling to understand or to see what He's up to in your life? In Hebrews 10:23 reminds us this. It says, "Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for He who promised is faithful." So today, let's hold on to that hope. Let's hold on to the promise of His faithfulness. Let's hold on to Jesus today as we just continue to worship and press into His presence, knowing that He's all that we need. Thank you, God. You're so faithful. You're so good. God of Abraham, you're the God of covenant, of faithful promises. Time and time again, you have proven you'll do just what you say. Though the storms may come and the winds may blow, I'll remain steadfast and let my heart learn when you speak. from age to age. Though the earth may pass away, your word remains the same. Your history can prove there's nothing you can't do. You're faithful and true. Though the storms may come and the winds may blow, I'll remain steadfast. And when my heart will speak a word, it will come to pass. Great is your faithfulness to me. Sing it out, come on. Great is your faithfulness to me. From the rising sun to the setting same, I will praise your name. Great is your faithfulness to me. Put my faith in Jesus, my anchor to the ground, my hope and firm foundation. He'll never let me down. I put my faith in Jesus, my anchor to the ground, my hope and firm foundation. He'll never let me down. I put my faith in Jesus, my anchor to the ground, my hope and firm foundation. He'll never let me down. I put my faith in Jesus, my anchor to the ground, my hope and firm foundation. He'll never let me down. He'll never let me down. Great is your faithfulness to me. Great is your faithfulness to me. From the rising sun to the setting sun, we'll praise your name. Sing it out. From the rising sun to the setting sun, we'll praise your name. One more time. From the rising sun to the setting sun, I will praise your name. Great is your faithfulness to me. Father of kindness, you will faithfulness never runs dry. God, whatever each and every one of us might be facing today, God, you are bigger. Your promises will always hold true. I pray, God, that you would help us to hold on to your word. Hold on to those promises that are yes and amen in Jesus Christ. And God, may we hold on to you. May we hold on to hope that you have given us. Jesus, we thank you that you went above and beyond for us, and that you continue to go above and beyond for us. We thank you that you are on the move, even when we can't see it, and even when we have no idea what you're up to. We thank you for all that you have done for us in the past. We thank you for all that you are doing right now, and we thank you for all that you have in store for us in the future. We love you, God. We worship you for all that you are. And we ask all of this in the powerful name of your Son, Jesus. And everybody here in person and watching online said, amen. Amen. Please have a seat.
As a 40-year-old guy at the time, I never saw it coming. I was enjoying my life. I was a self-employed business consultant, an avid guitar player, and married to my incredible high school sweetheart, who was at home with our amazing 4 children, who then ranged from 9 years old to 2 years. Up to that time in my life, I'd never had any medical issues. It began in June of that year. It's a mild pain in my lower left abdomen. It never moved, it never went away. It just got worse over time. The first test found nothing. Eventually, severe pain took me to the hospital, where a CT scan revealed a tumor. A tumor the size of a grapefruit was successfully removed, and I was diagnosed with stage 3 pancreatic cancer. We learned that only about 2% of pancreatic cancer patients survived more than 5 years. In the uncertainty, the temptation for fear was palpable. At the time, we chose to remember God's faithfulness. He had provided in so many ways throughout our lives, but the advice at the next medical appointment was to consider not doing any treatment. The recommendation was to go home and to enjoy whatever time I had left with my family. We were devastated. It was a hard stop to plan A. The news worsened after I was scanned again to check the area where the tumor had been. The report noted that the tumor had returned. It was the darkest period in my life. I was confronted with questions in a way like I had never before. Where was God in this? Which way was forward? Was I a fair weather Christian and only trusted in God when He's blessing my plan? What happens when plan A fails? What if B and C slide out of focus too? Trusting in God moment by moment was the only way forward in the face of uncertainty. A second opinion at Princess Margaret Hospital in Toronto began to raise questions and ultimately found that the scan report was incorrect. The tumor had not returned. So to the best of our ability, we leaned into God. My health began to rapidly deteriorate as the 6 months of chemo treatments progressed. I could no longer play floor hockey with my kids. I stopped working. I even lost the strength to play guitar for the first time in my life. It felt like everything was being taken away from me. I found I had to combat the fear and anxiety that wanted to overwhelm me. I thought about Matthew 6, where it talks about how God looks after the birds of the air and asks, are we not more valuable? I held on to those pictures of Jesus walking on the water towards the disciples in the ship. And I spent time thinking about Jesus and the cross and His faithfulness to serve God at the end of His life on earth in the face of what seemed to some like failure. In some of my weakest times, my wife would bring her MP3 player to the hospital, and we would each take an earbud and have our own little worship song time. At the intersection of doubt and uncertainty, I found the invitation to experience God's love in a different and deeper way. To trust Him to be God. It was in 2006 that I experienced that original pain, and yet here I am, sitting with a grateful heart that in difficult times, God renewed my faith. He actively expressed His care through an amazing community of people and allowed me to experience His grace, His mercy, and the truth that we are never abandoned. His love prevails. God is faithful.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Good. All right, if you are here in Waterloo, welcome. If you're in Kitchener, nice to see you guys. And if you're here online, welcome to you as well. My name is Brennan. I am one of the youth pastors, and I'm also the young adults pastor here today. Everybody else is on vacation, so you're stuck with me today. All right, so I've got a question for you, and I want to start off with this. Why do you do what you do? You know, why did you come to church today? Why did you drive the way that you drove here? Why are you wearing what you are wearing today? You know, there's probably a reason. Like, why are you wearing pants? Why am I wearing pants today? Why am I wearing jeans? And I've actually discovered the reason that I'm motivated to wear pants like this. And it all happened during this wonderful pandemic. So back when this started, like 8 years ago or whatever, when this all began, I was at home, and I was working at home, and I was learning what it's like to work at home. So I would do little things to make it feel like I was going to the office. And one of them was I would put a watch on, just kind of make me feel like I was doing something important. So I put a watch on, and I never usually wore a watch, but I put a watch on, and I'd also put on jeans, because when I'm in the office or when I'm here at church, I wear jeans, because it's like dressed up for a millennial. I'm dressed up and wearing jeans. But then as I started to settle into working at home, I learned something, that my coworkers are not there. It's just me at home. My coworkers are not there. Well, one of my coworkers is there. My wife is at home. But I learned that I only wear jeans because my coworkers are around. And I learned that the only time that I see my coworkers is on a video call, right? So all that they see on a video call is the t-shirt that I'm wearing or whatever shirt I'm wearing. So I was like, I don't have to wear these anymore, because these aren't the most comfortable pants that I could be wearing. So I went on Amazon, I bought a pair of sweatpants. And man, these things were comfortable, like really, really comfortable. So I went on Amazon again, and I bought 2 more pairs of these same sweatpants, and I would just cycle them. I just wore them all the time. And now I'm into shorts, now that people can't see my legs. Still, when I'm online, I'm just wearing shorts. But I realized that the thing that motivates me to wear jeans is people that I'm around. And today, so I'm wearing them because I'm around you. So thank you for getting me to wear jeans. I'm way more uncomfortable than normal. But you guys know what it's like to be motivated, right? You know what it's like to be motivated if you've ever sold a house. So if you've sold a house or been in a house while it's being sold, or your parents have a house that they're selling, something that you need to do is make it crazy clean, like super, super clean, like so clean that it looks like nobody lives there. Because no one wants to buy a house that it looks like people live in. So you clear everything off the counters, right? You get everything off the counters, put them in the cupboards. You take all those weird pictures of yourself and your family off the walls, because no one would want to see that, and they wouldn't want to buy your house if they were up. So you take those down, and you keep it incredibly clean so that somebody will want to buy it. Or if you haven't sold a house, maybe you rent from someone. So you hear that your landlord's coming over, and your landlord's coming over because you have a leaky faucet, and they're like, yeah, I'll be over. I'm gonna come over in the next 24 hours. So for the next 24 hours, since you don't know when the landlord's coming, you keep your house unusually clean because you want your landlord to believe that they're renting to a responsible adult, right? That's just what you do. Or maybe you know that summer's on the way, it's the winter, and you're like, I want to look good in the summer. I want to look great on the beach, so you start working out, you start eating right, you do all these things so that you can look good for the summer. So you know what it's like to be motivated with these little things. But there's bigger things in life than this, right? Like maybe your work. You know, why do you go to work? What motivates you to actually go to your job? So I used to have a job. I still have a job, this job, but I used to have a different job. In my early 20s, I worked at a car wash. So I worked at a car wash and I would wash people's cars. And that sounds amazing to some people, because some people do this just on Saturday morning. Wash their own car, you get at the hose, you soap it up, you spray it down, then even you might go inside your car and find all those weird things that have been left in there. And you find the scum in the cup holder, you know, that like weird goop that piles up down there. You don't spill your drinks, but somehow it just gets all weird in there. So you clean that out, you get your car really, really clean. And it's actually a nice thing to do on a Saturday morning for your vehicle. But do this on everybody else's vehicle over and over and over and over again. But even in the wintertime, people still get their cars washed and detailed. In the wintertime, you have to be outside, wet, when it's sub-zero, with towels, drying cars, your hands are frozen. And then you have people who bring their cars in to be shampooed. And the reason that people bring their cars in to be shampooed is because they're either, one, in like incredible condition, and these people just absolutely love their cars, right? So people who have like sports cars, or like a Dodge Caravan from 1993 that is like in mint condition, okay? Those were incredible when they came in. It was just so cool. But then the other kind of car that comes in to be detailed, is what we call it, is the kind of car where something has happened inside of this car. Something happened, and the owner opened the door, or they saw this event take place, whether it was over many years with children, or in a moment where somebody threw up, or started bleeding, or their dog puked all over the window. There's something that happens where they see this thing happen, and then they're like, I can't do this. This is so gross. No person should ever have to clean up something like this in their car. So then they take it to the car wash for the other people to clean it up. So I was that person. So I would clean up barf and blood and all this weird stuff that's in cup holders that no one has any idea what it is, but it's not mine, so it's really gross when it's not mine. So I would do this all the time. This was a hard job. This was a wet job. It was a cold job in the winter, but I did this, and I had motivation to do this hard, wet, and barfy, most of the time, work. So I did this because I had two reasons. The first reason was that I had some student loans, and I was like, I need to pay these off. I'm gonna pay off these student loans, and then I'm also going to buy a ring for my girlfriend. Those are the two things that I wanted to do, and my girlfriend, Erin, at that time, who's now my wife. So I wanted to buy a ring for her, and I wanted to pay off my student loans. So this is what got me out of bed every morning to go do this hard, gross work. So I would do this, and then eventually, as you can imagine, I paid off my student loans, I had purchased a ring, and I actually got another job. So I was making money in two places, and it was in a field that I actually wanted to be in. So then one day I woke up and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I have no motivation to do this anymore because I'm making money somewhere else. I've completed those two things. So I'd lost my motivation to do this work that I was once motivated to do. So I quit because I didn't need to be there anymore. So I quit that. But you know what it's like to lose motivation too. Like, think about that house that you're trying to sell. You keep that house so clean, and you actually like it. It's nice to be in a house like that because you're like, wow, I would buy this house even though I don't own it. This is the kind of house I would want to buy now because it looks like a showroom. But the moment you get an offer that is accepted, what happens? You can no longer keep that level of clean because you don't have the motivation to sell your house anymore because it's already been sold, right? Or the landlord finally shows up, and now they fix your faucet, they go out the door, and you can go back to your regular level of clean because you no longer have that landlord visit looming anymore. Or maybe summer comes. So summer came, you did your best, you got in shape for the beach, but now summer's gone. So the motivation isn't quite there, so it's now time to hit the fall, winter, spring, bulking season and hit it hard. That's how we do it. But these are small examples of just lost motivation. But motivation, really, it can come and it can go. And you can find it and you can lose it just as quickly. So I've got a question for you guys this morning, another question. And I think it's a pretty good question, and I think it's a pretty deep question. What's the motivation for your life? So when you dig down deep, and you might not be able to do this right now, but I'd love it if you do it later, or maybe you know already. What's the driving force in your life? What is that one thing that really drives you to do all that you do, that gets you out of bed every single day? So if you can think about that, or if you know what it is, what's the motivation for your life, and can you lose it? Because as I just talked, motivation, it can come and it can go. And things in life, whether they're like great things like family or anything else, nothing is forever that we have here. So can you lose the motivation that you currently have in life? So what are you living for? Is it a certain lifestyle? Is it a relationship? Is it the hope of a relationship? Or is it just that things are going to be eventually good? I think that's something that a lot of us live for. This idea that whatever I'm going through right now, even if it's hard, even if it's tough, even if it's something that I don't enjoy, that eventually I'm going to make it to a place where I'm going to have what I want. So even if things aren't great right now, later on, it's going to be worth it. You know, like working out. If you've ever worked out, we do it, and it's not that enjoyable, but we do it because of what we're going to get out of it, right? We get what we want. We get health. We get maybe look a little bit different, shed some pounds. But there's a reason that we go through this, because we want to get to this place where we get what we want, which is health out of it. But I think a lot of us, we might go through life just believing that the thing that gets me out of bed, the thing that drives what I do, is that things will be different later, that I will get the things that I want. And if we're not careful, this can actually sneak in, it can creep in to the way that we think about God. You know, we might start thinking that God's going to give us what we want eventually, even if what we're going through right now isn't exactly what we want right now. And you might find a verse like this. This is an amazing verse. I'm not saying it's not, but sometimes we read it a little wrong. So when we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose for them. So it would be easy to read this verse and be like, hey, who's this verse for? This verse is for those who love God, right? So this morning, that could be for all of us. That could be for some of us. You might be wondering about, like, do I love God? So this is a promise that could be for a lot of us in this room. So it's for people who love God. So it'd be easy to be like, hey, I love God. And it says that God is going to cause everything to work together for the good of that person who loves him. So you might read this and be like, okay, this means that God's going to work together all the stuff in my life. And if he's working together these things for good, it probably means that the things that I have right now are not good yet, or not what I want right now. So maybe God's going to take all the pieces of this stuff that's going on in my life, these things that I maybe don't love, the things that I maybe don't want, he's going to take them, kind of crush them together and bring them over here, and I'll have something that I want. Like maybe your car is breaking down all the time, and you're in a position where, yeah, I can barely afford a car, I can't really afford full insurance, and then it breaks down, and you're like, wow, this is not what I want. I actually want a new car. So you take your car to the mechanic, and you're praying, God, work this together for good. Work this together so that I can get a new car when I come out of here. And does God always do that? Do you drop your car off broken at the mechanic and you end up having a new car when you come out? I bet that has happened sometimes. I've received a free car before, not in that situation. But God gives free cars sometimes, but not always. So this is not what this verse means, that God's always going to take the stuff that we don't like, pack it together and turn it into this diamond situation, this diamond outcome that we want. So what does this verse mean then? because we know it doesn't mean that. And I think there's two keys in this verse. And I think the first key is good. So what does good mean? If good doesn't mean what I want necessarily, so what does good mean, and what does it mean to be called according to his purpose? So what does this look like in somebody's life? And that's what we're going to look at this morning. We're in a series called How to Start a Revolution, and we've been following a guy named Paul in the beginnings of the early church, the rise of the early church, the beginnings of this revolution. And something amazing about the Bible is that we can look sometimes at someone's life from start to finish. Sometimes we can see chunks, but we can see how God has been at work in and through someone's life. And he's been at work in Paul's life in a big way. Paul used to be called Saul. His name was Saul. And Paul's passion, his purpose in life was to destroy the church. That's what this guy was all about. He's basically the supervillain of the New Testament. And then he meets Jesus for himself. And so after he meets Jesus, it turns his life around, turns his life upside down. He wants to do nothing other than build Jesus' church. This is what he's all about. So if you were with us last week, Paul is in trouble once again. Paul seems to always be in trouble. He has a group of people who want to kill him. There's always people who want to kill him, it seems. And he's been taken into custody by Roman officials to keep him safe from this angry mob that was really upset about him talking about Jesus the way he was. They weren't so upset about the things he was saying about Jesus, but saying that this message, this new gospel message, was not just for the Jews, but it was also for everybody. So they were really upset about that. So Paul is going to be right in front of the Sanhedrin in this passage, and the Sanhedrin is like the Jewish Supreme Council. They make rulings on stuff. And so we're going to pick it up here in Acts 23, verse 1. If you have a Bible, you can turn there, or if you have a device, jump onto that. So here we go. So gazing intently at the high council, Paul began, "Brothers, I have always lived before God with a clear conscience." Instantly, Ananias the high priest commanded those close to Paul to slap him on the mouth. Things don't go well for this guy most of the time. But Paul said to him, "God will slap you, you corrupt hypocrite. What kind of judge are you to break the law yourself by ordering me struck like that?" And those standing near Paul said to him, "Do you dare insult God's high priest?" And then he says, "I'm sorry, brothers, I didn't realize he was the high priest." Paul replied, "For the scriptures say you must not speak evil of any of your rulers." So just to kind of unpack what just happened there, kind of weird. He gets slapped in the face, and people are like, "Hey, you can't do that." And so he gets upset. It's just this weird moment where this is kind of like a Bible burn, what just happened. He gets commanded, the high priest commands someone to slap Paul in the face, and then Paul's like, "What's wrong with you?" And then they're like, "Hey, you can't talk to the high priest like that." And he's like, "Oh, I didn't realize he was the high priest because he's having people slapped in the face, and that's not really something that high priests should be doing, and they shouldn't be." So that's kind of what happened there. It's kind of confusing when you read it. But then Paul realized that some members of the high councils were Sadducees and some were Pharisees. So there's a division here in this council. So he shouted, "Brothers, I'm a Pharisee." So he starts to identify with these Pharisees, "as were my ancestors. And I am on trial because my hope is in the resurrection of the dead." So Jesus. This divided the council, the Pharisees against the Sadducees. For the Sadducees say there's no resurrections or angel or spirits, but the Pharisees, they believe in all of these. So there was a great uproar. Some of the teachers of religious law who were Pharisees jumped up and began to argue forcefully. "We don't see anything wrong with him," they shouted. "Perhaps a spirit or an angel spoke to him." So again, more things that the Sadducees are not. As the conflict grew more violent, the commander was afraid they would tear Paul apart again. So he ordered his soldiers to go and rescue him by force and take him back to the fortress. That night, the Lord appeared to Paul and said, "Be encouraged, Paul. Just as you've been a witness to me here in Jerusalem, you must preach the good news in Rome as well." So this is Jesus speaking to Paul, and he's saying, "Hey, you've been an amazing witness for me. You know, you're here in Jerusalem where this seems like it might be the end because there are people who want to kill you, but it's not. You're going to move on to Rome. You're going to do this same thing that you've done here. You're going to go to Rome." So Paul, he is safe for the moment. He's safe. But in light of that Romans 8:28, this doesn't seem good. Like, this is not what I would define as good. He's still in trouble. He still has people who want him dead. He's still locked up. This doesn't seem good. This is not what I would want to be happening in my life, and it's probably not what you would want to be happening in your life if you're honest. And I want you to think about the expectations that you have of life. And you might not realize that you have these, but you probably expect that you will have food, that you're gonna have water, that you're gonna have shelter, that you're gonna have internet, that you're gonna have Wi-Fi, that you're gonna have perfect Wi-Fi coverage in your house that like reaches to the far corners of your basement. You know, this is just stuff that we think we should have, you know, and there's nothing wrong with thinking you should have that. But our expectations in life, it goes beyond stuff though, it really does. We expect that we're gonna have people around us who love us. You know, we expect that we will hopefully have fulfillment in what it is that we do. We hope that there's gonna be, you know, health in our life. We hope that we'll be healthy, or at least be healthy later on. We expect that this stuff is gonna happen. We hope that these things are gonna happen, and these are good things. These are good things that we want in our life. But if you think about Paul and where he's at right now, you know, he doesn't have much or any of that to look forward to. He's in a dark place, really. Like, this guy's been locked up. He's always got people chasing. It's easy to read the Bible and just kind of gloss over what like the emotions that someone might be feeling are. Having people who want to kill you, have people who were trying to kill you, being rescued over and over again out of these situations. This is harsh. This is rough, what he would be going through. So he doesn't have a lot to look forward to other than, hey, you're gonna make it to Rome. And if you think about life, something that can drive us to keep persevering is knowing that there's stuff to look forward to, that whether it's I'm sick right now and I'm hoping, praying that I'm going to be healthy, whether it's you want a relationship and you hope that there will be one down the road, all these things, they can help you to keep moving, keep pushing forward. So let's keep going with this. So the next morning, a group of Jews got together and bound themselves with an oath not to eat or drink until they had killed Paul. So more people who want to kill Paul. There were more than 40 of them in this conspiracy. They went to the leading priests and elders and told them, we've bound ourselves with an oath to eat nothing until we have killed Paul. So you and the high council should ask the commander to bring Paul back to the council again. Pretend that you want to examine his case more fully, and we will kill him on the way. So this is not good news, and this bad news is overheard by Paul's nephew, which this is an amazing thing that happens. Paul's nephew gets to go see his uncle. He gets to go see Uncle Paul, and one of Uncle Paul's rights as a Roman citizen is that he can have visitors. So his nephew comes to him and he's like, Uncle Paul, people want to kill you. And Uncle Paul's probably like, yeah, I know, everybody wants to kill me, right? But he's like, no, this is different. There's 40 people who want to kill you this time. There's a conspiracy. They're not going to eat. They're not going to drink until they have killed you. And then Paul's like, okay, you need to go tell this commander. He seems to care about my well-being for some reason. You need to go tell him what's happening. And so he does. So the nephew goes to this commander and he's explaining the situation. And he says, they're going to try and get you to bring Paul before the Sanhedrin once again, but they're going to try and kill him on the way. So don't do it. Don't bring him there. There's more than 40 men hiding along the way, ready to ambush him. They've vowed not to eat or drink anything until they've killed him. They're ready now, just waiting for your consent. Then the commander called 2 of his officers and ordered, okay, get 200 soldiers ready to leave for Caesarea at 9 o'clock tonight. Also take 200 spearmen and 70 mounted troops. So Paul is safe. So they move Paul out of Jerusalem and they take him towards Caesarea and they send him on to a guy named Governor Felix to hear out his case more fully. So he's safe and he's sent with this letter explaining the scenario. He's gonna spend 2 years waiting for his case to be heard, waiting for it to be resolved. So he's safe, but this is not what I would call good. You know, this is not what I would want, right? So how can this be good? How can this be good, what's happening to Paul? And I think it really depends on what his purpose is. So how can this be good? It depends on what his purpose is. If Paul's purpose was to buy a bigger house, if Paul's purpose was to get a faster horse or to get the latest sandals, Paul would be incredibly disappointed by now because he knows this is not coming, right? He knows this. But Paul loves God. Paul loves God with all his heart. You know, he has been called to faithfully represent Jesus, faithfully tell Jesus' story to other people, tell what Jesus has done for him to other people. This is his motivation. This is Paul's purpose. This is why he gets up every morning. This is why he's able to keep driving through such a difficult time. And if you see in this passage, this isn't like he's just along for the ride, right? He's not just like, okay, let's see what happens. Let's see if they find me guilty. Let's see if they're going to execute me. At the beginning of this passage, he divides this council very strategically. He splits that council so that, he can keep moving. He can keep moving on. He hears about the plot against his life. He tells his nephew, okay, let's try and get around this. So he still is passionate. He is still driven. He is still motivated. He still has purpose. And Paul's motivation to faithfully follow Jesus, it's not circumstantial. It doesn't matter where he is. It doesn't matter if things are good. It doesn't matter if things are bad. It doesn't matter if he has a lot. It doesn't matter if he has a little. There's no finish line with this. His motivation cannot be taken away from him. It just can't. So God is constantly moving Paul towards Rome, and Rome is going to be instrumental in the spreading of the gospel. People are going to hear about Jesus because of Paul's life. You are hearing about Jesus because of what happened in Paul's life. He was suffering. Like this is a whole lot of suffering. If you really think about trying to get in Paul's head, this is suffering. It'd be really tough. Even though he's suffering, his life is incredibly, incredibly meaningful. It's incredibly meaningful. So why does this matter to us? Why does this matter? Paul's life, it's an example of what it looks like to faithfully follow Jesus. Faithfully follow Jesus. And here's how it turned out. It doesn't look good, right? Paul's life is not what I naturally would want for myself. And I don't think it's what you would naturally want for yourself, to be shipped around, have people trying to kill you because of what you believe. This is tough stuff. He was suffering. He went through a lot. But even though he suffered, it was still good. God was still using all of it. We know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. God was working everything together for good. The kingdom was being advanced. Paul's life was being used in incredible, incredible ways. You maybe are being impacted this morning by what happened in Paul's life. Even though it was bad, even though it wasn't that thing that we wanted to happen, it was still good. So, this good that is spoken of in this verse, good doesn't always mean that we get what we want. Sometimes it might. I'm not saying that God is just going to make you suffer, because that's just not the truth. But we might have to go through stuff that we don't want to go through. We might never make it to the place that we want to make it to. Like you heard in the video, sometimes plans A, B, C, and D, it just doesn't seem like they're going to happen. It doesn't seem like it's a possibility. But even if none of that happens, even if we don't get to where we want to go, it can still be good if we're called according to this purpose, which is just to faithfully follow Jesus. So if you have a spot in your life, maybe your whole life, that you are lacking motivation, that you're lacking, fulfillment in it, maybe this is what you need. This purpose to be infused into everything that you do. Your parenting, it can change the way you parent. It can change your marriage. It can change the way you look at that job that you maybe don't enjoy that much. Because this is not circumstantial. It's not something that depends on you making it to that place that you want to be. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to make it over here, whatever that is for you. But if you don't make it, you can still look back at the end of your day, end of your week, end of your month, end of your life, and still be like, I know that all of this was good because I know that God has used it. And this is available to all of us. It's available to all of us. So, that question, I really want you to think about it. What's the motivation for your life? And is it in something that you can lose? And I would argue that if it's in anything other than God's purpose, God's eternal purpose, what God is doing here on this earth, then it is something that you can lose, and you don't want to lose it. So think about that, pray about it, and let me pray for you. Jesus, we just thank you. We thank you that you want to use everything in our lives for good. You want to use everything that is happening, the good and the bad, to further your kingdom, to further your cause here on this earth. So God, I just pray for everybody here today. I pray that you would help us to just reflect on what it is that motivates us, what it is that drives us, what it is that gets us up in the morning. God, I just pray that you'd help us to reflect on that and to look at the areas of our life, if we call ourselves Jesus followers, the areas of our life where you are not the main motivation, if we are not faithfully following you in every area. God, I pray that you would help us to do that. So God, we thank you for all that you've done, all that you're going to do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you for hanging out with us today. It is really a life-changing thought. Jesus didn't promise us an easy life, but rather he says that in him we find, well, we're going to find a little bit of trouble, but in the end we find life. So being honest with yourself about your motivation can go deep into your heart, but God knows that as we lean into him, he works in us to bring more attention to him. Now today, if you would like someone to pray with you, we have a team standing by to pray with you right here online. Simply click the prayer button that's just below me, or if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, email us at online@creeksidechurch.ca. Couple quick things before we leave today. Don't forget to check out the opportunities that are for you and your life group and your family at thebigserve.ca. These are chances for us to make a big difference in a practical way in our community, and we can do this. Secondly, a quick reminder that we have opened our campuses up in Waterloo and Kitchener for in-person services. And you can register and join us in person if you're comfortable. Go right online, creeksidechurch.ca/Sunday. And if not, why not join us right here online? And that's all for this week. We'll be right back here next week, wherever you're watching now. God bless and have an incredible week.